Fire Escape Academy inspector training videos. We're here in Manchester, New Hampshire, and we're looking at fire escapes. Two things you need. This is the Audrey's Musical World building, an alleyway next to the aluminum fire escape. Fire escape must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So let's take a look at this fire escape just on the paint side, if it's got more paint than rust. And it looks like it does. It's got more paint than rust, so I can't write a paint violation on this one. So let's look for structural issues, see if we have any structural issues that have been here for a while. How about this much rust on this cantilevered weight box? All these pieces are ready to drop on a car or drop on people's heads. Look at this channel in the back, blown out. This whole thing has been rotting for 25 years. Why nobody ever wrote a violation on this is beyond me. But that chain is a giveaway that this whole cantilever is out of balance. There's no release arm. All the joints on this fire escape are shot. The treads, somebody looks like they removed all the treads. They rebolted the treads with some new hex head bolts. And in our previous training videos, if they were square, you'd need to change all these square ones to hex head. They already did that, but they forgot to remove the rust that's in all the stringer clips connections to the treads. So you just don't change bolts, you also have to remove the rust. So here you have a fire escape that's structurally unbalanced, structurally not structurally sound, and this weight box, this rotten weight box, is ready to collapse and drop on somebody's head. So this is a life safety issue here. Probably been hit a few times by trucks because this is an alleyway. But this fire escape is in very bad condition. That structural box is going to hurt or kill somebody. If you have any questions on this or any other videos that you've seen, give us a call at 866-649-0333. FireEscapeEngineers.com is the website. You can also go online to YouTube video and visit our channel there. It's called Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training. And take a look at this and many other videos that we do nationwide on how to help inspectors write better violations. And this violation should be repair, paint, test. Never write a scrape and paint violation, because believe it or not, if you wrote a scrape and paint violation on this fire escape, they would just paint this blob of steel and try to get away with it. So make sure you write repair, paint violations only. Never write scrape and paint violations. Any engineer inspecting this would definitely condemn this box, and this majority of this fire escape has structural issues throughout. As always, you can always get some additional information from us. Free fire escape awareness program we can do for your city. That includes industry standard confidence tests, tags, load test criteria, as well as repair procedure criteria.
Witnesses say it sounded like an incredible explosion when the fire escape of a Philadelphia apartment building suddenly collapsed and injured 3 people.
NBC 10 cameras were there as a friend holds on to one of the victim's hands, who is apparently conscious as the victim is placed into an ambulance by medics.
KYW-TV reports a man who was critically injured and 2 women were rushed to local hospitals.
Police believe the bolts of the fire escape appeared to have been rusted and dislodged from the brick wall of the apartment building.
The victims fell more than 30 feet to the ground, and now the incident is under investigation. Worth noting, the complex is more than 100 years old and even on Philadelphia's historic registry. Local reporters are all pointing out the city's licenses and inspections department hasn't filed any violations in the past when it comes to the old building, so Sunday's collapse came without warning. Neighbors say the 3 victims, reportedly all in their 20s, may have been partying on the fire escape landing before the incident. For Newsy, I'm Elizabeth Hagedorn.
Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. Here we are in Manchester, New Hampshire, the back alleyways, back streets of the main street. And again, you only need 2 things to write a violation. Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. This fire escape also has a big bush growing in, so we have an obstruction issue here also, so that's a violation. But definitely got more rust than paint on the treads, so that's all you need. Write that violation and you can walk away. But let's say the owner painted this fire escape 100% just the day before you got here. Let's see if we have any other issues structurally with this fire escape. So definitely you got all these treads, this much rust. You've got rust from above and rust from below on all these treads, indicating that, for them to let this go, all these connections have been compromised. So that's the first thing. The rail connection up there is compromised. This is all original bolting on these treads. This fire escape is 50 to 75 years old with original connections on the bolts for the treads. That's a violation in itself. The roof platform looks to be falling apart. Connection to the walls, falling bricks. So this whole fire escape here is questionable, and only an inspection by a structural engineer will identify whether everything is sound. If you have any questions on any of this inspection, this video and any other videos, give us a call at firescapeengineers.com, 866-649-0333. You can also go online to our YouTube channel, and it's firescapeacademyinspectors.com, and take a look at this and many other videos that you have on Firescapes. Firescape Academy inspector training video. Here's a rare case, an all aluminum replacement fire escape. We're here in Manchester, New Hampshire, and we're looking at an all aluminum replacement for a fire escape. Some of the right things, some of the wrong things that we're going to try to find on this fire escape. And necessarily, we don't have to find any wrong things, but it's good to talk about an all aluminum fire escape and why some people sometimes use them, and what you still have to do on some of these in order to maintain these fire escapes. First of all, let's talk about aluminum. Aluminum is non-corrosive, so it's not going to rust. So that's why a lot of people will build an all aluminum fire escape, and at great cost, because the cost of aluminum was much higher than the cost of steel. Okay, a couple things you have to concern yourself about. Aluminum does oxidize. So like copper oxidizes, steel oxidizes, aluminum will oxidize over time also. So there is a lifespan on the aluminum that you have to slow down the oxidization process. So one of the recommendations that you would make is you'd get a primer that is good for aluminum, and then you'd prime. You'd seal all the joints, because that will help in the oxidization process. And then you paint it the color of choice. Got to make sure that you have no metal that is steel combos, because two dissimilar metals will start oxidizing. So somebody has already started putting a metal bracket on an aluminum fire escape, and believe it or not, there will be some oxidization at that joint, and it'll eat through. There's a chain on there. That chain is made of metal. That chain is already oxidizing where it's meeting the aluminum. So you got to make sure that you use stainless steel. So a lot of times the bolting on a fire escape that's made of aluminum is stainless steel. Look at the joint. The cantilever is a drop cantilever. There is no release arm on this cantilever, so this thing is not properly balanced. Because what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to release this cantilever, and it's supposed to drop 2 to 3 feet per second. As you can see inside this box is the weight, which is great. So if that weight ever lets go, it's not gonna hurt anybody because it's trapped inside that weight. But the rest of that weight mechanism looks like it's the original weight mechanism, and it's made of steel. So those pulleys must be greased. That cable looks like original cable. It's still the old original cable. I would switch that out. It looks pretty rusty to me. Because there's no release mechanism on this, if that cable ever lets go, this entire staircase will come down and crush somebody on the head. Not hurt somebody on the head, it'll crush somebody on the head. So you're supposed to have a release arm so that in case there's cable failure, the release arm holds this cantilever up in the air. And only when released does it drop 2 to 3 feet per second. So the release arm is a backup system in case the cable fails. Doesn't have one on here. Otherwise, this is a brand new system. I can't find anything structurally wrong with it. It's properly tied into the building. It looks like it was epoxy bolted back into the building. So the way it was attached, the way it's looking, everything looks good on this fire escape. But the cantilever has no release arm, which is standard industry requirement on one of these. Otherwise, what has to happen is somebody has to walk out 2 to 3 feet per second. And I'm looking down there, there's another cantilever down there. I'm just trying to see if that one has a release arm. And I don't see one on that one, so that I can show you as an example. But otherwise, listen to what has to happen. If this is a theater or whatever this may be, the people have to come out. A bunch of people have to walk out 5 to 8 steps, tell everybody else behind them to wait. And as they're sitting here, their weight counteracts the weight balance in the front, and they start dropping, not at 2 to 3 feet per second, maybe 5 to 10 feet per second. That drop plus the impact on the floor will throw some of the people down the stairs. And once there's enough people off the stair, it'll pull itself back up, waiting for the next group of people. That's not how it works. You're supposed to release it. It's supposed to drop 2 to 3 feet per second, hit the ground, stay down, and people self-evacuate out of this building. And when the firemen arrive 1 minute later, 10 minutes later, or an hour later, the fire escape is in a down position and they can go into the building and fight the fire. So on this brand new fire escape, aluminum fire escape, the only thing wrong with it that you would write a structural violation is that it does not have a release arm and the cantilever is not balanced, even though this looks like a brand new fire escape. If you have any questions on this inspection video or any other inspection video you've seen, give us a call at 866-649-0333. Visit our website, firescapeengineers.com. And to look at more videos like this all around the country, visit YouTube channel Firescape Academy Inspector Training. And this and many other videos are there. We can also help your city with a Firescape Awareness Program. We can send you free industry standard confidence tests, tags, load test criteria, as well as repair procedure criteria for any and all fire escapes. Firescape Academy Inspector Training video. What we have here is it's on this is Manchester, New Hampshire. We're on a storage facility here, converted old factory. And what we're looking at is a fire escape that's used as a means of egress in case of an issue. Two things the fire escape needs in order for it to pass inspection: must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. This fire escape has no more paint left on it. Automatically, because it has no more paint on it, every connection is compromised. So this is a fire escape violation on structural. Even though it looks like it should be just a paint job, every one of these connections has been compromised because nobody has been painting or sealing any joint. So every single joint is now growing with rust. Every connection here has rust. Every tread weld, every connection has rust. And that's because nobody bothers to paint. So water getting in from the top onto these cracks and crevices, and then looking up, every one of these treads is compromised. Every weld is compromised. Everything on this fire escape is compromised simply because there was never a paint job. Every connection, no. And here's the funny thing. The connection on this, look at all that rust in there. Because nobody ever thought of creating a weep hole on this so that none of this ever traps. Improper latches. But here's the connection. Here's how you got to fix this thing. Aside from the structural, is rebolting every connection you see, cleaning it of any rust, sealing it with silicone, and then rebolting it, because you can't re-weld this. Re-welding doesn't have as much life as a rebolt. So this entire welded fire escape needs to be rebolted. So that's the typical. If you have a question on this inspection, give us a call here at firescapeengineers.com. 866-649-0333. You can also visit us online at YouTube channel, Firescape Academy Inspector Training, and this and many other videos throughout the country will explain to you how to write a violation on a fire escape, whether it be structural or whether it be for paint. The other things we also offer free to your city as an awareness. We'll send you industry standard fire escapes confidence test, tags, load test criteria, as well as repair procedure criteria. Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. We're here in Manchester, New Hampshire. One of these fire escapes near the municipal, I believe the old municipal building. And this fire escape, in order to write a violation, you need two things. Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So let's take a look at it for the paint job first. Paint job side of a violation is very simple. Is there more rust than paint or more paint than rust? Got a lot of rust here on this fire escape, but believe it or not, they've been throwing enough paint job on it that you're just at the halfway point. You know, you could literally get away with a paint job a spot paint job on this. So I see more paint than rust. So I have to look for structural issues. So structural issues is, let's take a look. Look at all the square head bolts on the supports. This fire escape is 50 to 75 years old, if not older. And if it still has the original square bolts on it, that means that all these bolts are compromised. They should have been refurbished minimally in its first 50 years. It should have been a refurbishment of all the connections, and it hasn't. So that's the first violation you can write, just the fact that it has all original bolts. And look, that bolt in there already popped. Number two is you got cement popping. Cement's popping. So that's another violation. Let's look at these connections here. Original, these are rivets. Now, rivets are original to the fire escape. Let's see what rivets do. Rivets don't let things grow. And as this rust tries to grow, like it's doing right up there, what happens is it starts popping and shattering the cast iron foot to the tread. Look at all that rust. It's huge half-inch rust. So a lot of these rivets are popped already. Okay? So, connections on the feet, bad. You can see the rust growth on top, never cleaned. And if you go up the fire escape, you can see some areas where they've never changed the bolts. You can see some areas. So all original bolting on this 50 to 75-year-old fire escape. And huge growth on the connections, huge. So what you need to do here is you need to write a violation. Fire escape is structurally unsound. So we have structural issues, original bolting. That's all you need in order to write a violation on this fire escape. If you have a question on any of this video or any videos that you've seen on Fire Escape Academy, give us a call at firescapeengineers.com. 866-649-0333. You can also go online for more videos like this. Go to Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training on YouTube. Check out our channel. It's free. Get all the free videos from all over the country on fire escapes just like this throughout the country for you to train on how to properly write a violation. And if you want to start a fire escape awareness program in your city, we can send you free industry standard confidence tests, tags, load test criteria, and repair procedure guidelines, all free of charge from Fire Escape Engineers. Okay, Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training. Here we are at a fire escape. It's a door. Somebody steps out into an alleyway. We're here in Manchester, New Hampshire. And this is a small fire escape. It's got treads that need to be inspected. It's got rust on the floor. Looks like, minor connection issues, but somebody cut the rail away. So it used to have a railing, but somebody took it away. It's pulling away from the building. So that needs to be addressed. It's rotting at the feet. It's lifting off the ground. It's got original square head bolts to it. So if this is 50 to 75 years old, it's never been refurbished. Look at the piece that holds the grating up. Look how much rust is inside there. Okay? It's a violation. So, a fire escape doesn't have to be monstrous. There's another joint failure right there. So fire escapes don't have to be monstrous in order for you to write a violation. This is a fire escape. It's outside the door. It's a means of egress. If you have any questions on this or any other video that we've done, give us a call. firescapeengineers.com, 866-649-0333. If you'd like, you can also visit our website or go to YouTube and type in Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training. You're going to get this and many other videos talking about all kinds of fire escapes that are out there that you can use to help write a violation. And again, you only need two things in order to write a violation. It must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. This fire escape needs both. It needs to be made structurally sound, rails put back, and then you can either spot paint this or fully paint this in order to make it pass inspection. Make sure you write the violation as a repair, paint, test violation. Never write scrape and paint violation, because they will do just that. They'll just scrape it and paint it. Right, repair, paint, test violation. So again, probably the world's smallest fire escape. Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. This is, we're going to talk about the extremes. Fire escapes come very small, and fire escapes become very big. They still all have the same rules. Must be painted, must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. Let's take a look at the big one. And again, sometimes you don't have the beauty of getting close to them, so here we are looking through a fence, and we're starting to see some, on a purely galvanized fire escape, we don't see too many issues. We don't see any rusty tiers. We see a little bit of the galvanized starting to give way, so you should get to that as soon as possible. Right now, I'm just looking straight up at this thing. I really can't see too many huge rust spots. But still, if you should have this fire escape inspected every 5 years, galvanized can only last 20 years, but if you prime and paint it, it'll last indefinitely. So this fire escape should be looked at to make sure that the owner's aware that he should get to the paint job. Otherwise, once it starts rusting, you can't stop. I mean, you clean it up as best you can, but you know that's after the fact. So while the fire escape is still galvanized, it will give you 20 years unprotected like this. But you should prime and paint it. Now, this is a door. Somebody needs to get out. There is no rails. There is a Fire Escape Academy inspector training videos. We're here in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. We've got two side-by-side fire escapes that are going to be a great comparison of a couple things that have gone on. First of all fire escapes must be structurally sound, must be kept painted, otherwise you can write the violation. The easiest one to write on both of these fire escapes right off the bat is there's no paint on this fire escape. So if there's no paint on the fire escape, that means rust has basically invaded every connection on this fire escape. So even though you got a paint job violation here, you can really write a structural violation because 100% of the rust on both of these fire escapes, all the paint is gone. So you know that every connection's been invaded. So now let's take a look at a couple things that are wrong on this. Aside from the paint issues, structural issues. This cantilever has grass growing on top of the box. That's an indicator that this thing hasn't been dropped in many years. It has trash barrels under the cantilever, so it can't come down anyway, even if you wanted to bring it down, because they've invaded the space that it comes down on. There's no release arm on this, so this thing is out of balance. It won't drop 2 to 3 feet per second once released. If you look at all the welds on all the stairs, they've got tiers, so every weld joint is compromised. If you look up and we're looking for the square head bolts on this one, there's already hex head bolts on this, but they never painted the fire escape. So every one of those hex head bolts bolts are bad now because they're compromised. We don't know what rust is grown on behind them, so we wouldn't sign off on those. We've got cement spalling at every joint of the supports going into the building on this fire escape. That's another reason to write a violation on this one. The gussets have original square head bolts on it on this fire escape. So just tons and tons. The pivot arm, which got hit before, is not properly attached, and it's pulling away from the building. Look at that. So many things wrong with this fire escape here on this fire escape, and all of them having to do with structural and the fact that there's no paint on it. It needs a 100% paint job. So there's a repair, paint, and test violation on this one. Now let's take a look at this one over here, where it looks like somebody's been here recently. We got some shiny new bolts on the fire escape. It looks like they went up and they put some shiny new bolts up above and shiny new bolts up above on the treads. That's all great, but where's the paint job? 100% of this fire escape has no paint on it, so the fact that they put bolts into this thing, we don't know when, the rust was never cleaned out of the connection. So if you look at the connections of the stringer, there's new bolts, but the rust is still in there. So if the rust is still in the connection, that means now the new bolt is getting rust, eating on it every day because they were not sealed. So original square head bolts still on the fire escape, so that means the superstructure needs to be redone. The tread's got rust in the connection between the stringer and the tread. Even though it's got a new bolt, that new bolt's being eaten away as we speak because they never painted the fire escape. What's important is that you just can't change bolts on a fire escape and then make it pass. It must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. The fact that you had to change the bolts was because the fire escape was all rusty. Once you change all the bolts on this fire escape, you gotta paint it in order to maintain the integrity of the bolts. So this guy went through all this work to change a ton of bolts on this fire escape, not every one required. He needs more to change on this, but because he never painted it, every one of the new bolts you put in is compromised. is suspect. I wouldn't sign my license on this thing. So this is one of those catch-22s. When you change the bolt, you got to remove 100% of the rust in the connection, rebolt the connection, then seal the connection with silicone, then paint the fire escape. So that way that connection is no longer being compromised with rust. So this fire escape also has no release arm on the thing. If it wants to come down, it's got barrels in its way, and it needs a full paint job, and you got cement issues along the wall. So you got two structural and you've got paint job violations on this particular fire escape, as well as this fire escape standing next to it. If you have any questions on any of this video or any additional videos you've been watching, give us a call at 866-649-0333 or visit our website, Marcus, at firescapesengineers.com. You can also go online and visit us on YouTube by going to Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training videos. We can help you with...
A startling scene in downtown Colorado Springs Wednesday after a man falls to his death.
I was just walking up the street to get to the bus stop, and the cops were right there, told me I couldn't come this way.
Police say the victim and several others were working on the roof of this privately owned building when the man fell.
He may have fallen a distance of anywhere from 15 to 20 feet is what's being investigated right now.
Tragically, the man died on scene. It's believed he fell from the fire escape and not the roof or a window, although how it happened is still unknown.
That's what's being investigated right now to determine the actual cause of the accident itself.
Right now, police say the death is not criminal and is being called an industrial accident.
There were several witnesses, individuals who were working with the deceased party, and so we've interviewed them as witnesses in this investigation.
It's really sad. I feel bad for his family. I mean, I don't know him, but prayers and best wishes to his family for sure.
Others in the area expressing similar concerns and well wishes, visibly distraught by the day's events.
I mean, I can't even imagine it, just coming out to do your job one day and just fall off a building. Like, it's really sad.
Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. We're here in Manchester, New Hampshire, and near the Citizens Bank. Looking at some fire escapes here, and this is one of them. This fire escape, two things in order to write a violation. You need, must be structurally sound, and must be kept painted. By looking at this fire escape, it looks like it's, from a far away, it looks like it's been kept painted. Can't see any problems with it. But as you get closer and you start looking for structural issues, you can see that it's an all-metal fire escape. And they tend to put salt and snow and sand on this in order to keep the fire escape from slippage. This water gets into all these cracks and crevices which were never sealed. There's no weep holes for the water to get away. So what tends to happen is when you get underneath it, you get to see what it occurs. All these connections are compromised. So whenever you get a fire escape that's all metal, and they just salt it and do whatever needs to be done to it without sealing it so that the water has a way to get away and the water has somewhere to go, what you have is an all rusted fire escape. So this fire escape is structurally unsound. It needs to be inspected, needs to be repaired in order to pass inspection. If you have any questions on any fire escape video that you've looked, including this one, give us a call, firescapeengineers.com, or call us at 866-649-0333. You can also visit us online at our YouTube channel, Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training. And this and many other videos are there for you to learn how to write violations on fire escapes and what's the best way to find and identify problems with fire escapes from a simple pass fail inspection point of view. We also offer, if you're looking to have free industry standard confidence tests, tags, load test criteria, and fire escape repair criteria. That's just that sunlight you're seeing is holes in the plate of the fire escape. Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. Here we are in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one of these back alleys. And we have a fire escape here. Two things in order for it to pass. It must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. Well, if you look at a fire escape and it has more rust than paint, then it fails, and that's the only violation you need to write. This fire escape has more rust than paint. The fact that it has more rust than paint and it's an all-welded fire escape, you can sort of guarantee that you're going to have structural issues, because if somebody lets the fire escape rust this much, every one of these welds now has been compromised and needs to be verified by a proper inspection. So whenever somebody lets it go, it's an automatic structural evaluation required, because the whole supports, everything, every weld has now been invaded by rust, and it now needs to be inspected. If you have any questions on this or any other fire escape training video that we've given you, please give us a call at 866-649-0333, or visit us online, firescapeengineers.com. You can also go to YouTube and see this and many other videos on the proper way to write a violation on a fire escape at Fire Escape Academy Training. If you go to online, just type in Fire Escape Academy Training videos, you'll find tons of these. Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. We're outside here, parking garage. We're in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And this is an enclosed parking garage staircase. And some of these are exposed to the weather, some are not. We wanted to show you, though, that these need to still pass the code. They are an egress, they are a fire escape, they are exposed to the weather. So, but this one is an enclosed one, and some of them do have the glass enclosure. But as you can see, I'll get closer and I'll show that it must be structurally sound, must be kept painted as required by code. So if you come here and click closer, you're going to see that the rust is starting to show, even though it's an enclosed. Look at all that paint. Nobody's been painting this thing. And when you go inside, you're going to see that the fire escape, because they do throw water on this, they do wash it, there is water that gets down into the steel and is rotting from underneath. Look at the rotting. Look at the rot. So just because something's enclosed doesn't mean that eventually time and moisture doesn't get to it. Look at the rot. Look at the rotting. So these need to be inspected. Look at that splitting. So these are the things you need to do, is to have all fire escapes, any means of egress, inspected. Okay? So with that, that's the proof that you have water still penetrates no matter what. Water still penetrates and gets in here. Even to a parking garage, it's semi-enclosed. Could be moisture, could be many things. Look, see? So all these need to be inspected. Structurally sound, and must be kept painted. So this one has just failed on the inspection for paint and has failed on the inspection for structural. It's definitely got structural issues. So if you have any questions on this or any other fire escape video you've seen, give us a call at 866-649-0333 for additional training, or you can visit our website at firescapeengineers.com. You're welcome also to go to YouTube and go to Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training, and you can get additional videos on all types of fire escape inspections nationwide, as well as free confidence tags, free confidence tests, free industry standard repair procedures, and load test criteria. All for free.
Right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hoses. But earlier in the night, when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments, because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, we had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
About 50 people were displaced inside this building. However, firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in, except the one unit where the fire was in. They said that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson, on the scene of Bridgeport, News 8.
Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. Here we are in downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and what we have here is a nice, beautiful fire escape, and nice landscaping, and nice everything. And you know, fire escape, you need to write a violation. You need one of two things: it must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. Also, in the law is obstruction. You can't obstruct. So here we have beautiful garden, beautiful bushes, beautiful everything, and there's no way to get out. There's a lot of activity in here, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a bush. All this has got, you got to have a path out of here. And currently, looks like this is probably the path, but it's all now being blocked by the bushes, so those need to be trimmed back so that you can probably get out. And then what you have here is a cantilever. So let's take a look at some other things with the weight box in the back. As you can see, that controlled weight box, typical of what we always ask for. So in the case there is a failure, the weight box is controlled, won't hurt anybody. In case the cable snaps, the cantilever will drop. You got a lot of obstruction. Fire escape is well painted, so just some minor structural issues that we need to deal with. Needs a release arm on the fire escape so that it can be properly repaired and dropped at 2 to 3 feet per second. Looks like all the bolts, as we always talk about in our, these are all hex head bolts on this fire escape. So not only has it been painted, but it looks like in its lifetime, somebody's come in and changed all the bolts out. So the only real issue we have here is just the obstruction. You know, you can't physically get out. You might have to trim back some of these bushes, and so that the cantilever can be permanently down in one position, or if it's going to be up, it needs a release arm to drop it at 2 to 3 feet per second to the ground. If you have any questions on this inspection or any other inspection, give us a call for further training at 866-649-0333. You can also visit our website, firescapeengineers.com. You can also visit the free online training at YouTube and just type in Firescape Academy Inspector Training. And this and many other videos just like this throughout the country are there for you to train on how to properly write a violation, whether the fire escape is structurally sound that has been kept painted, or in this case, is there any obstructions, and this beautiful landscaping is what's obstructing this fire escape from passing inspection. Firescape Academy Inspector Training. Here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, we got a spiral. A lot of people don't realize that spirals can be used for fire escapes. This is a case. So some of the things you got to look for on every fire escape, it must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So this is one that's fairly new, because spirals tend to be newer, and again, must be kept painted. So this fire escape is very well painted, and must be structurally sound. It's a fairly new fire escape, so I can't find anything wrong with it. The purpose of this video is really just to talk about the possibility of spirals being used as a means of egress. Now, right next to it though, we have another problem. Now, somebody has permanently attached an aluminum ladder that they bought at Home Depot, let's say, and they've permanently attached it next to that window up there, because obviously they need to meet the means of egress. Now, that is illegal to do that, because the only thing they have to do, the ladder is perfectly legal. The fact that they have no balcony there is what's illegal. So in order for this to be okay, because people can use a ladder, they can even use a wooden ladder, because all fire escapes must match the building type. This is a wood structure, so they can have a wooden ladder there that they've made themselves if they want. But the one thing that makes that illegal over there is that the owner, the occupant of that room has to, there's no way for them to go get that ladder. So you need to have a balcony out there that allows you to access the ladder. That's what makes it legal. But then once they get to this roof, they have to get down. So we need another ladder over here or somewhere. And that roof must have a catwalk system of some kind. Otherwise people can pass out, fall off, and drop off this roof. So a couple of things, that's legal, but what they can do is create a balcony up there, remove that ladder, do a balcony to that roof line. That roof catwalk will tie them into this spiral, and they get to the ground. That's what would be the cure here for this particular fire escape situation. Again, we're in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This is Fire Escape Inspector Training. If you have any questions on this video, for additional training and or questions on this particular situation, give us a call at 866-649-0333, firescapeengineers.com. You can also go online, go to YouTube to our channel there, Firescape Academy Inspector Training video, which is used for fire inspectors, building inspectors, and housing inspectors. If they have any questions or they want additional training on what to look for when you're inspecting fire escapes and what is a violation, what is not, based on paint or structural inadequacy or missing components like this particular fire escape here. All right, we're here doing a class here in the MBCIA. We have Gino back here with us. This is we actually did a class with him probably 2 months ago, and these are some an actual fire escape we took off a building, and we actually saved the lower part and the upper part. This is the upper part of the fire escape. This is the lower part that was buried in the ground, and we're actually using this to show some of the pieces and how long it takes to rust, some of the gussets, and just how long it takes. I don't know if you can see in here, Gene, how much it eaten in inside, that's a notorious area for. And we also showed on this side just all the typical connections that get welded, and some of the repairs that are done that are unauthorized type of repairs, which is, the rust is still in there, and the connections are welded. These last 1 year, 2 years at most, and then they snap again. Plenty of the lead paint still on them, so we actually have a lead stick here to do a lead test on it, but anything that has an orange base is based. And then just how much rot. If you can come on this side, take a look and see what happens when you just let it sit on the ground or buried into the ground, because sometimes they asphalt it. But we have several types of connections here, and this is a fire escape that came off an elementary school as of this December. So this was actually being used by children, teachers, and the most surprising part of it is firefighters and building inspectors walk this every day in a school building because they get inspected every year. So this is why we want to do this as a show and tell.
You come from Massachusetts?
Yeah. But this is just, it's typical of across the country. I see this across the country. This is not just typically here. But, and then from this side we show how easy it is to take the same very piece and just change out the bolts. Silicone shut it. And we left these purposely on to show that they're 50 to 75 years old. But if you leave any of these connections on, now you still have to load test it. This would be considered what's called a spot repair. And if you leave anything old, you have to load test it. If you take those out, as easily as you took these, you take those out, and the rest is clean, you've avoided the load test because you've refurbished it. So spot repairs still force you into a load test.
And
full repairs.
In this particular situation, did they replace the entire fire escape?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And but you know who brought me to this attention? The facilities guy. Now, this wasn't a violation. This wasn't a fire violation. This wasn't a state code violation. The facilities guy said, "I don't think we can fix this. I don't want to fix this, and I'm telling my school to change it out." But this is a 75-year-old plus fire escape in use as of December 19th of this year.
Well, it's one good reason why we're here today.
Well, you had a class. What did you think about the class that you got? Because you actually have to go out in the field and watch some of this stuff. What do you think about it, dragging it in here? And
Yeah, we had Cisco out to our group 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
Metro West building officials. Great presentation. Following the educational portion, we actually did a site field inspection. We looked at a building that had actually 3 types of fire escapes, as you recall. We had a balcony, just a single balcony. We had a ground-supported fire escape, and we also had a hanging fire escape.
with cantilever.
Cantilever, correct. And during that inspection, I think one of the fire escapes was basically hanging off the side of the building, and it was a real eye-opener for me. It's the first training that I've received by Fire Escape Services here, which was excellent. And I'm happy to report that has been cited and remedial work is underway as we speak right
Perfect. And again, we found this on the other fire escapes there, on all the 3 that we saw. We found the same exact scenario. So now knowing what the right way to fix something is, what the wrong way to fix something is, because even if it's going to be fixed the wrong way, now we still have to load test it. It may pass a load test that day, but sadly, some of these wells, if the rust stays, are going to pop again within 1 to 3 years. And the cycle on these is 5, so that's why we're trying to avoid welded repairs with rust still in the connection being one of the ways. And now that the EPA is saying that if you got this little orange, you got any lead, you can't weld on fire escapes anymore either. Thank you for doing that piece.
Thank you for the training.
Thank you. You can clearly see the primer in the area, and it looks like it's been cleaned. You can clearly see there's no rust. But then all of a sudden, as soon as I paint this, I can make this fire escape look pristine if I paint it and I do all this bad job. And I paint it, the engineer who was not there watching me. Oh, by the way, do you think I pulled a permit to fix this fire escape? No, you know,
we get the letter from the engineers
after the fact. So we're not being watched. Okay, we're doing whatever we want, and the engineer shows up to get a check that's either $300 to $500. You think he's going to get out of his car and walk the whole thing? or is he going to give you an opinion letter? Because the thing is going to be perfectly painted black. He's going to give you an opinion letter, which is acceptable, that says, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief and opinion, the fire escape looks structurally sound. If anybody gets hurt, you know what my opinion is worth? It's just an opinion. That day. When did it break? Did it break the day that I signed the opinion letter? No, it broke 6 months later. Oh, I didn't check it that day. The letter you have is an opinion that day. You didn't tell me to come back every day and check it for 6 months. So we're going to talk about opinion letters and how they're not really doing their job. What you want is structural oversight. And if you write a violation, you want to have a one-on-one relationship with your engineer. Regardless who the vendor is, you say to the engineer, are you watching this guy? Are you doing 3 to 5 visits with this guy? Because at the end, I want your letter, and I want, as my code says in Massachusetts, I don't want an opinion letter, I want this thing certified. So either load test it or certify it. And certifying it is not going to come from a vendor because he's going to quickly go in and out and do this kind of work. Certified means you have a letter that states you've gone in and verified that there is no rust in any of these connections and that the tiebacks into the building are 100%. Then I'll accept your certification letter. Otherwise, these opinion letters that have been used throughout the United States, I'll bet you, if I research this, and this is 75 years worth of rust growing here, I bet you that it's not just being painted in these 25 years. I bet you in the city that this came from, there's a certificate from 5 years ago certifying it the way it is from a structural engineer.
Well, some of the procedure that we use is we find some of these, sometimes we get in touch with the fire department.
Yep.
One of the major concerns is when they have emergency, fire department going and using it.
Yes. That's when people get hurt. The tenants get hurt. The firemen get hurt. You know who never gets hurt? The landlord. You know who never? You know the second guy that never gets hurt but gets yelled at all the time? The building inspector. Because when something horrific goes wrong, the first guy out there has to be the building commissioner. After the building commissioner, they go, who's in charge of my fire escape systems here? And they're going to go, I think it's Louis. Get Louis over here right away. And then, and he needs somebody to hang. He has to hang somebody because they're trying to hang him. And he needs to basically say, but the main thing that we're going to try to stress to you in this class is have it inspected, have a report generated that you see, have a one-on-one relationship with an engineer, and you don't allow any work to be done on any other fire escapes in your city that doesn't have a report that you've seen and doesn't have engineer oversight. So you want a permit to be pulled because this is structural. When you do anything structural in something, you got to pull a permit. Anything structural. Perfect. So you're going to get a permit, and then because it has a permit, do you have time to watch it getting repaired correctly, or do you want an engineer paid by the owner or paid by the vendor to oversee that it's getting done correctly?
Well, most of the time when we do the citation, we go to the owner, and we get in touch with the engineers that we have.
Right. But that's it. A lot of times the owners get an engineer and they do come in. They do it that day and then they're never called again. For 1 month, 3 months, 6 months until the work is done. There's a magic in the middle that nobody knows what happened, not even the engineer. And then all of a sudden, magically, 3 months, 6 months later, the engineer gets a call and said, hey, how much to come back again and look at that very fire escape you did a report on. And he didn't even do a critical report. He did a general, the fire escape looks bad, it has deflection, it has rust. He didn't say, fix this, fix that exactly, and he didn't watch it. So what we're going to teach today is to say, fire escapes, as the code says, must be load tested and or certified through refurbishment to avoid the load test. We're going to talk about these pieces and say to you, you put the burden on the engineer and say, hey, if there's a violation in this structural work, you have to watch this job all the way through. 3 visits or 5 visits. An initial visit to tell the vendor exactly what needs to be done. A mid-visit that says, hey, you're doing exactly what I told you to do, and not welding it like I'm not going to sign off on that. And then a final review that says, this is good, I'm going to put my name and liability on this piece of paper. And now there's a final call. Louis, how are you? We're done. You want to meet the engineer or do you want to meet the vendor at the site for you who knows what a good repair job looks like to sign off on it? So we've got all these eyes now signing off on these fire escapes. And And then at the very end, we have a tag. I don't know if you saw the yellows and reds and white tags. There's going to be a white tag on this that says this fire escape now doesn't have to be inspected or load tested for another 5 years, and it tells you exactly what date it is. It tells you who the engineer was, and it also says on the tag who repaired it. So even if you missed something, 3 to 5 years later, you find a problem with it, and it was an incorrect repair 3 years later, and it fails again because of that, you can look on the tag and say, you've got the owner, you say, you've got recourse. This engineer said everything was perfect, and this vendor said, and got paid to fix everything 100%. So you're not going to, even though I'm giving you a violation, you're not going to fix any of this. You're not going to pay for this because I'm going to call this guy, this vendor, and I'm going to call this engineer. You call them back and say, you have them call me. Because if they charge you to get this right, they're never going to work in the city again because they just violated, you know, what they wrote to me in a document. I got a document here that says 100% of all the connections are free of rust that the engineer said. And I got another document that's a contract that says the vendor was going to remove 100% of rust, identified or not, on the report, meaning as he was going along, even if it wasn't identified by the engineer, he had to remove it anyway at no additional cost. So there's a double there. The engineer signed off, I came and signed off, and you know what? I didn't even see that. But you know what? I'm not going to...
One of the concerns I have is the way that the code is written for the inspection of fire escape every 5 years. There should be a short period of time.
We do.
Specifically, even though the code allows the review of the building every other 5 years, should be
right. On the tag I'm giving you, the confidence test, this is the structural confidence test. I'm going to give you a sample of it today for you to take. And you can make one out of for Somerville. And we can make it out for you aside from tag. There's the yearly review. So it does a 5-year structural, but every year they have to walk through and sign this. This is the owner or the management company has to walk through with you during either a fire inspection or during a building inspection. And as they walk through, it's a yearly verification in between the 5 years, and then they both sign here. And you get this as part of your annual on the building.
So, say they have an inspection on the stairs, and every other year, part of that contract, you have to go and check.
Well, that's on the 5 year, it's a structural guy going in. On the 1 year, it could be the maintenance guy. It could be, but the maintenance guy's walking with you. See, you're walking with the maintenance guy every year, and he has to sign this in front of you because you've walked the building, you've checked all the things in the building, and then all of a sudden, let's go look at the fire escape. He's going to tell you 3 things for the annual. He's going to tell you the bolts and everything looks good. He doesn't see any rust. He's going to say that the paint looks in good condition, and he says all the doors and windows are opening and they work, and the cantilever hits the ground. You go, okay, that's a simple 1 year inspection, just like get on it, guy. And a lot of times on a bigger fire escape, you make the owner get out of the window, climb down the fire escape all the way to down and sign this. You don't say, hey, does it work? No. Go to the top, climb down, and then sign this.
We have that situation where we go through the 5-year inspection, and maybe 1 or 2 years later, you got the snow or other condition. The stairs, you know.
Yeah.
They start really start to.
Well, if it's properly repaired, that'll never happen. I guarantee you. I'll explain to you how things get fixed correctly. If you temporarily repair this, yes, in 1 to 3 years it'll start rocketing and ricketing again. You repair it like that one, guaranteed. And I believe that the guarantee that we ask from all vendors, you must give a 10-year unconditional, 10 years, that this fire escape will always pass. As long as you keep it painted, and that's on the owner. As long as you keep it painted, it'll always pass. Now, even if the owner doesn't paint it, rust can't get in there anymore. It's got 50-year silicone. And it's got a brand new bolt. You know, rust needs air and water to grow. Yeah, this is unchecked. You can put your finger in, and the bolt's gone. You know, if I can twist that enough, I'll pop that bolt out, but it's a false bolt. Same as this false bolt. And when you look at here, I mean, look at this is buried in the ground. Look how much it ate into the ground. And this is all typical repairs that happen. A lot of guys who can't fix it from underneath will put weld angles on top. They'll leave the rust. They'll weld the nose.
Inspection is going to be illegal.
It's illegal.
The survey has to be.
And you can't weld because the law says with lead paint, and if you have lead paint, you can't weld on fire escapes anyway. And 90% of all the fire escapes, 98% of all the fire escapes in the United States is bolted connection. You're supposed to be changing the bolts anyway. You're not supposed to be welding. This is how you make money. You cheat by well. I'll get in. So instead of a $10,000 job for a full refurbishment of a fire escape, it's a $3,000 job from some welding guy, but it only lasts 2-3 years. And then the next time you're going to see this is 5. So you'll either see this when a tenant falls through or a fireman falls through, and guess who they call? They call Louis. Because Louis not doing his job, they say. And that's the thing you have to. But we're going to cover all that today in the brochures, and we're going to talk about not just here, but all across the country. Good, thanks for the interview. Thank you. Training. So what's your question?
Just as far as the pinning on the strings.
Yeah.
I know that obviously these have been changed.
Yeah.
Blue ticket, 125.
But it's not you. The structural engineer is going to tell you that. Whether these need to be flipped out, on whether he's a lot of times is it more than 25% degraded, and the building inspector is going to make that. I mean, the structural engineer is going to make that call. You never make that call. But the way they run it here, you are making that call. So you're acting like a structural engineer. You're taking all that risk because you think you should be changing them out. Yet financially, the owner is going to let you switch those out. So, but if the engineer is saying switch it out, does the owner have any say? So let the structural engineer be the speaker, because the structural engineer is dealing directly with the building inspector, not with you. And if the building inspector wants a load test or he wants a refurbishment, the engineer's got all his liability on the line, and he's not going to play with his income. He's not going to play.
As far as that comes, don't even mention it. Let them handle that.
Yeah, they're
just on the sidelines.
But don't work with a fire escape that has no engineering.
Oh yeah.
Associate membership.
And no permit on it. Because now you are taking all the liability.
Excuse me. Scott Furtado.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So Louis is here from the city of Somerville. He's one of the building inspectors. He says he's with the multifamily side of things. Anything that's related to fire escape, Louis here is the one that's doing that. So we actually pulled this off of somewhere in Massachusetts, off an elementary school, as of December 19th of this year. So this was actually being used by school children of kindergarten all the way to 8th grade into a schoolyard. And the question I have, and I show this to a lot of times, this is our first showing ever of such a piece to help you really bring it home, is that school children were going up and down this every day. So with the teachers, administrators, but also every year a firefighter and or a building inspector doing their yearly inspection walked through this fire escape, and there was never a violation. The only reason I replaced this fire escape is because the facilities guy said, I don't think you can fix this anymore, can you remove it? So we came out and we basically showed, you see, look how much rust. Look how much, you can put the false, see the nut is still there, but look, it's missing. So, and if you look at here, see this is a notorious area for rotting through. You can put your fingers through in a lot, and a lot of times, whenever you get somebody that gets one of these fire escapes, the first thing that shows up is a welding guy. And welding guys, I don't know if you know, but the EPA doesn't let you weld on fire escapes anymore because you're burning lead. This orange base is a lead base. And so with a lead base, what you have is the EPA says you can't put a flame to anything that's lead. You can't do it in your house, you can't do it outside. So now, but this is typical of the way they would fix this fire escape. The first thing they would do is weld the nose, but leave the rust. If there was a lot of rust in there, they did what's done in here. Because I doctored this up, so this wasn't 100% this way. I doctored it up a little bit to show the wrong way to fix it. They take a little piece of steel, drop it in there, and they weld it here and weld it here, but leave the rust. As soon as the rust starts growing, what's going to happen is it's going to tear all these welds. Anybody that has welding experience knows if you leave the rust in place, 1 to 3 years from now, it's going to break, it'll detach. But the cycle on this is every 5 years. So here they are doing repairs, emergency repairs we call them, that may last a year or two, but it's going to last for 5. And so this is what's happening out there. There's a lot of people that sometimes don't even have the skill to weld, that are welding. Whereas anybody who doesn't have the skill to weld but has the skill to put in a bolt, this is professional. This is incorrect. But it's the same guy. If you make the same guy who works for an ironwork company, not welded, but just change the bolt, and you see that on that example over there, nobody with limited skills has to weld any of this. If they just change those bolts, the fire escape doesn't need to be load tested because you change the bolts. So we thought we'd bring this out to show this takes 25 to 50 years of growth. When it's a half inch, it's almost 50 years of unchecked growth. 50 years that this thing has been used to basically have children go up and down, school teachers, and you know what happens as soon as somebody hurts themselves? Guess who they call? Guess whose fault it is that somebody got hurt on a fire escape?
Most of the time,
This was installed 75 years ago. If my kid fell on this fire escape, you know who and this fire escape was in your city. You know the first one they hang is the inspector, because you're supposed to have caught this.
Well, most of the time when we're going through the inspection, that is what we request. This is something we have as a policy to request an engineer go out.
Correct.
And work together with the installer to see what is missing, what pieces need to be replaced.
Right. What happens, and that's a very good thing, what we're going to teach today is when an engineer does go out and notices this, he'll create a nice little beautiful letter. The installer goes out without that letter. The installer goes out and fixes it the way he wants. The installer then paints this and puts as much silicone over it as he can. Then the engineer who was supposed to be overseeing it, guess when he gets called in? When it's still in the repair stage, where he can clearly see, this should be the point when the engineer should be